Hi, I'm Mark Fletcher, and I'm Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Today we're going to be talking about the 911 Inform Emergency Management Platform and how we can provide some employee safety awareness for both internal and work-at-home users during the pandemic and beyond, and how to be compliant with the new RAY BAUM'S Act, Section 506. Let's get started. The topics that we'll be covering in today's webinar will be Kari's law compliance, which was due on February 16th of 2020. We'll talk about the RAY BAUM'S Act compliance, which was due for wired devices on January 6th, and then go into effect for wireless devices a year later on January 6th, 2022. We're going to spend a lot of time on location discovery and how accurate that discovery should and can be. We'll talk about delivering location information and additional data and how to get that to both legacy and next generation 911 PSAPs. And finally, we'll talk about managing the costs of handling that emergency data and the network services that are required to support it, which for many enterprises are really the big unknown. Kari's law compliance went into effect on February 16th of 2020. The law applies to new and upgraded multi-line telephone systems, also known as PBXs, and it's got basically two simple requirements. The first is 911 direct access without an access code. That means I've got to be able to walk up to any telephone device, dial the digits 911, and that call's got to go through to the 911 center. Now, it's also a good idea to make sure the system will respond to 911 or whatever your common access code is. But direct access without the access code is what the law requires. The second element to Kari's law is on-site notification. This is critical because people on-site need to understand that an emergency call has occurred, and knowing that, they can provide assistance or they can be ready to assist emergency responders get to the location when they arrive. Now again, that's for new systems installed after February 16th of last year or systems that have been upgraded. And an upgrade is defined as one receiving a major upgrade of hardware that would include 51% of the components, and it's also applicable to a system that's received a major software release. And the thinking there is that all new systems have these capabilities in their current releases of software. The other law that just went into effect a few days ago was the RAY BAUM'S Act Section 506. And on January 6th of 2021, that's enforced for wired telephone devices, regardless of the technology. So that's analog, digital, and IP. RAY BAUM'S Act 506 requires that the enterprise provide a dispatchable location when a 911 call is made, and that dispatchable location needs to be delivered both on-site and to the public safety answer point or the 911 center. Now the big question here is, what is a dispatchable location? And RAY BAUM'S Act specifically defines a definition of that. A dispatchable location is the building street address of the caller plus additional information that allows that caller to be located in a reasonable amount of time. And that additional information can be floor, zone, room, or anything else that gets the responders to the caller. In short, there's quite a bit of latitude on what that can be. Today in the United States, we currently have E911 technology deployed nationwide. This is the legacy analog-based emergency network, basically capable of handling voice. But the way we communicate today is far beyond that. The smart devices that we carry, the intelligent communications platforms that we use, all have capabilities of communicating in many other ways beyond just voice. Text, email, pictures, video are just some of the ways that we can communicate now. And the internet extends that even into devices in this age of the Internet of Things, or IoT. Next generation 911 networks are being deployed today across the US. And there are services available today that can actually bridge next generation 911 technology all the way down to the legacy E911 center. This provides an opportunity for enterprises to actually get ahead of the curve and not have to worry when their local centers become compliant. Let's take a little deeper look at that. In the legacy analog E911 network, the only data that was sent on the call was the originating station's caller ID. That caller ID dictated the routing to the correct public safety answer point, and when the call arrived there, the dispatch equipment would take that caller ID and then do a reverse lookup in the telephone company databases. This put two very important limitations on the communications path. Number one, to report an exact location, every single device needed to have a unique telephone number associated to it. And the telephone database record associated with that phone number needed to be populated, accurate, and correct prior to the 911 call being made. And unfortunately, getting that database updated could be a 24 to 48 hour window, so you can see where mobility and dynamic movement was problematic. Next generation 911 networks are built on an emergency services IP network, or an EZNet. This new network was IP-based and very much like the internet, providing intelligent connectivity from the origination network through the transport network all the way to the endpoint public safety answer point. Being IP-based, it wasn't limited on data or the type of data, so I could send voice, text, email, pictures, or even video. Now obviously, to move to this next-gen 911 network, there was no transition, just like you can't take a black and white TV and make it a color one without changing virtually every part inside of it. So this meant a new next-gen network had to be built before it could benefit anyone. But that's when innovation came into play, and an over-the-top next-gen 911 network was built by a company called Rapid SOS that would handle the transition into this bold new world. Basically, the network existed in parallel, handling the multimedia data that needed to be transmitted with calls, delivering that in its native IP format to a next-generation 911 center, but then down-converting that data if the destination was a legacy 911 center. When the voice call and the data reached the endpoint, public safety answer point, the legacy call and the next-generation data were then married together and presented to the 911 call taker, providing a very functional transition state that allowed the enterprises to take advantage of that delivery today. Now, when we move to a next-generation 911 network, does the Rapid SOS functionality need to go away? Well, the answer to that is no. And the reason is because public safety answer points would find it difficult to manage the hundreds of thousands of connections to individual origination networks. The functionality of the Rapid SOS network is going to drop down in the network layer and provide a common aggregation point within the next-gen 911 EZNet. This gives enterprises a single point of contact as well as a single point of contact for public safety. Rapid SOS can act as a firewall, buffering that traffic from that critical public safety network. And because it's standards-based, it opens the door for multiple providers to be there, should that market evolve. The main point here, especially for the enterprises, is that they move to next-generation 911 today, ahead of the curve. And as the network builds out and catches up, the enterprise doesn't need to make any changes, providing a longevity of stability in their policies and procedures. Let's talk about location discovery of the originating device. We need to worry about internal users located within our campus facilities. We need to worry about legacy digital and analog devices, which are typically unintelligent and difficult to discover. We need to worry about IP device mobility. Network connectivity is becoming ubiquitous. Users can easily move devices or be carrying wireless devices that are inherently mobile. And especially today, we need to worry about the remote worker, individuals that are bringing devices into their homes, where that cool corporate IP phone may be sitting on a desk as a child or spouse walks by, not realizing that phone may not report the proper information. Fortunately, Next Generation 911 helps us fix all of those problems. The problem today is not the task of getting location. That really isn't that difficult. The problem is it's unreliable. For our discoverable devices, or IP devices, enterprises typically rely on Layer 3 or subnets. These are network zones in the building, like an area or a floor. But in order for this to work, those physical areas of the subnets must match the emergency response zones. If I've got an IP address range assigned to a floor, I need to make sure that nobody ran a cable upstairs because they were short of switch ports. That's very common in many buildings. And the area that you're serving needs to be manageable. Beyond Layer 3 is what's called Layer 2 switch port discovery. And most solutions out on the market, everyone I know of at least, can say that phone is connected to port number 17 on this particular switch. Therefore, I know where the phone is. But in reality, do you? Or do you know just what switch port it's plugged into? Where does the patch cord in that switch port connect to the large wall field? And is that documented? If you say cable records to any IT person, they'll probably shudder and run away. So the fact of the matter is Layer 2 switch port is very accurate to the switch port, but all the switch ports are located in the closet. And if you don't have cable records, you really don't know where the device is. And some solutions that are out on the market will say, well, I'll just let the user provide their location. And it's their responsibility to tell me where they are. And the problem there is they may not know where they are. The information that they provide to you may not be accurate, or they may just say, the heck with it, and not tell you. And while it's less problematic in a building, but still an issue, it's very problematic for remote users that can be anywhere. And while you can argue all day on what's right, what's wrong, and whose responsibility it is, at the end of the day, if something bad happens, this is where you end up in front of a jury. Not to determine if you've broken a law, but to determine how responsible are you for a wrongful death. That's what's at issue here, and that's what you need to keep top of mind. Did you do everything that you can do that's reasonable? At 911 Inform, we looked at this problem and decided it was time to stop putting band-aids on the problem and deal with it head on. We came up with a new plan that actually uses the smart devices that employees have with them at work today. When a multi-line telephone system phone registers, we can analyze the network to determine if that device was in the same location where it was previously. And if it is, and was located, we now know its location. But if the device is in a different location, we contact the device's registered owner based on their profile settings, having them click a link on their preferred device, be it their smartphone or laptop. The web page that loads utilizes the location services that are in that smart device, which by the way are the very same services used to summon ride-sharing services or order a pizza, present the user with a map, and ask them to confirm their location. So we borrow the smartphone location services, knowing that the user is co-located with their MLT device, and we log that location into an internal database. We now collect additional information about that location, the device, and the user, and create a special emergency services payload that can be transmitted to 911 in near real time should that device make an emergency call. We didn't have to dedicate a DID number to that device. We've got specific device level granularity, and we're providing all of that information in public safety to effect an immediate and intelligent response, while letting emergency staff internally understand a complete operational picture. This creates a cost-efficient, precise reporting mechanism that the enterprise can use for any device, be it digital, analog, IP, or mobile. We utilize E911 and Next Generation 911 data, providing nationwide dynamic routing through our Next Generation 911 Tier 1 carrier bandwidth. And since this information is real-time, only a single record is needed for each physical address, not one for every single station. This significantly reduces the month-to-month operational costs that make other solutions on the market financially unsustainable. And the solution works anywhere, on internal devices, remote users, or work-at-home employees. The real value of the 911 Forum solution comes in additional data. Next Generation 911 is all about IP connectivity. This allows data of nearly any type to be processed in real time and delivered directly to next generation 911 public safety answer points. This way, when an emergency call occurs, regardless of how or where it's generated, in addition to precise device location information, auxiliary additional data providing situational awareness is deliverable directly to the 911 public safety answer point. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, and video is like having an encyclopedia of information. Explicit situational awareness can be communicated by sending floor plans, streaming live video, or any other dynamic in-the-moment information that's critical in achieving an efficient public safety emergency response. As an added capability, because of the 911 Inform connection with Rapid SOS and their ability to process emergency call location data for the cellular network carriers of smart devices, we're able to create a micro geofence around your property. Now, when a Rapid SOS enabled cellular phone initiates an emergency call from inside of your geofence, an alert is received from the carrier network notifying you of that event within your enterprise. This is done without any device registration and without any software being installed on the cellular device. This is an important data point as 85% of all 911 calls originates from cellular devices. This allows your enterprise to plan for a coordinated response with your local public safety agency and provide additional information that may be relevant to a large-scale event. Make every second count with the 911 Inform Emergency Management Platform. I'm Mark Fletcher. I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions here at 911 Inform. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.